Everyone in the room believed the decision would end with a celebration, until one woman placed a single number on the table that changed everything. Adrian Whitmore had built his reputation on knowing when to take risks. For years, the powerful mafia boss had turned uncertain opportunities into successful ventures, creating an empire that stretched across industries and generated billions of dollars. People around him often described him as a man who could see the future before anyone else. That was why the atmosphere inside Whitmore Tower felt so confident on the morning of the final investment review. The project before them was worth $2 billion, one of the largest decisions Adrian had ever made. Executives, investors, and advisors gathered in the glass-walled conference room, expecting the final evaluation to confirm what they already believed. The numbers looked impressive. The possibilities seemed endless. Everyone was ready to approve the next step. Everyone except Naomi Carter. Naomi sat quietly at the end of the table, reviewing every document with careful attention. She was a curvy evaluator known for her ability to find what others overlooked. Unlike the people around her, she was not focused on Adrian's reputation, his wealth, or the pressure surrounding the decision. She was focused only on the facts in front of her. Some people in the room wondered why Adrian had chosen someone like Naomi for such an important evaluation. She was not part of the traditional circle of powerful executives. She did not come from a world where influence opened every door. She earned her place through knowledge, discipline, and the courage to ask difficult questions. When Naomi finally closed the report, the room became silent. Adrian watched her carefully. He expected a recommendation. He expected a number that matched the confidence everyone else had shown. Instead, Naomi placed the evaluation in front of him. At the top of the page was her final score: 0. The silence that followed felt heavier than any disagreement Adrian had faced before. Several people looked at Naomi with disbelief. They assumed she had misunderstood the opportunity. They assumed she did not understand the scale of what was happening. But Naomi remained calm. She knew the number would surprise them. She knew some people would question her ability before they questioned the information. Still, she had a responsibility to deliver the truth. Adrian looked at the evaluation again. A 0 was not just a score. It was a direct challenge to a decision that carried billions of dollars behind it. Yet Naomi did not appear nervous. She did not try to defend herself with emotion. She simply waited for the question she knew was coming. "Explain," Adrian said. Naomi opened the report and began pointing to the details she had discovered. She explained that the project had potential, but the foundation behind the plan contained weaknesses that could not be ignored. She was not rejecting the vision. She was warning them about the risks hidden beneath the excitement. For the first time in years, Adrian found himself listening to someone who was not trying to impress him. Naomi was not there to gain approval. She was there because someone needed to protect the truth. And in that moment, the man who controlled billions faced something far more valuable than another successful deal. He faced a perspective he could not bite. The room remained silent after Naomi Carter revealed the number on her evaluation. A decision worth $2 billion had been reduced to a single word written on a page, and everyone wanted to know why. Adrian Whitmore looked across the table at the woman who had just challenged the confidence of an entire room filled with executives. For years, people had approached Adrian with carefully chosen words. They respected his position, his influence, and his ability to create success. But Naomi was different. She did not measure her response by the power of the person sitting across from her. She measured it by the responsibility of the decision itself. Adrian leaned forward as Naomi continued explaining her findings. She pointed out that the project was impressive, but the foundation behind it depended on assumptions that had not been fully examined. Several forecasts were based on perfect conditions. Several important details had been overlooked because everyone was focused on the size of the opportunity. Naomi explained that a great idea could still fail if the preparation behind it was not strong enough. Her voice remained calm throughout the entire explanation. She did not sound like someone trying to prove a point. She sounded like someone protecting a future outcome. That difference caught Adrian's attention. Around the table, some executives struggled to accept what they were hearing. They believed Naomi was being too cautious. They believed a project of this size required confidence, not hesitation. But Naomi understood something they had forgotten. Confidence without preparation could become a dangerous illusion. Adrian watched the reactions around the room and noticed something he had rarely seen. The people who had been the most certain before the meeting were now the least comfortable with questions. They had trusted the excitement surrounding the project more than the details inside it. Naomi had done the opposite. She had ignored the excitement and searched for the truth. After the meeting ended, several executives approached Adrian privately. They suggested that Naomi's evaluation was too extreme. They questioned whether someone outside their usual circle should have such influence over a decision of this importance. Adrian listened without interrupting. In the past, he might have dismissed Naomi's opinion because others disagreed with her. But something had changed. He remembered how confidently everyone had supported the project before Naomi spoke. He remembered how quickly they accepted the possibility of success without asking enough questions. That realization stayed with him. Later that evening, Adrian reviewed the documents again alone in his office. The city lights reflected across the windows as he studied the same information Naomi had examined. For the first time, he was not looking for confirmation. He was looking for understanding. The more he reviewed the details, the more he recognized the value of her evaluation. The 0 was not a rejection of his ambition. It was a warning that ambition needed a stronger foundation. The next morning, Adrian requested another meeting with Naomi. When she entered his office, she expected another discussion about the evaluation. Instead, she found him reviewing her notes carefully. Most people would have changed their answer after knowing who was behind this project, Adrian said. Naomi looked at him calmly. Then it would not be an evaluation. It would only be approval. Her answer stayed with him. Adrian had spent years building an empire by trusting his instincts. But Naomi showed him that even the strongest instincts needed honest questions. And for the first time, the man who had billions behind his name realized that the person challenging him might also be the person protecting him. The decision that followed Naomi Carter's evaluation would become the moment Adrian Whitmore began seeing his own empire differently. Before that day, Adrian believed his greatest strength was his ability to make decisions faster than everyone else. He trusted his experience, his instincts, and his understanding of business. Those qualities had helped him build a powerful reputation. But Naomi had revealed something he had never considered deeply enough. Sometimes the biggest risk was not moving too slowly. Sometimes the biggest risk was believing there was nothing left to question. While Adrian continued reviewing the project, Naomi returned to her work without expecting recognition. She did not celebrate the attention she had received. She did not try to prove that she had defeated a powerful man. In her mind, she had simply completed her responsibility. The evaluation was not about winning an argument. It was about protecting a decision that affected thousands of people connected to the future of the company. That attitude made Adrian even more curious about her. He wanted to understand how someone could stand in front of a room filled with influential people and remain completely calm. The answer became clearer when he learned more about Naomi's journey. Long before she entered Whitmore Tower, Naomi had spent years building her career in financial analysis and risk evaluation. She had often been the person people underestimated before they saw her results. Some judged her appearance before they understood her expertise. Others assumed she was too independent because she refused to simply agree with popular opinions. But Naomi had learned something early in her career. Respect that comes only from approval disappears quickly. Respect built through consistency lasts much longer. That belief shaped every decision she made. Adrian noticed that Naomi approached every challenge the same way. She did not become defensive when people questioned her. She did not become arrogant when people finally listened. She remained focused on the work itself. That was unusual in a world where many people were more concerned with appearances than outcomes. One afternoon, Adrian invited Naomi to review the project updates with him. Instead of sitting across from her as someone seeking approval, he sat with her as someone seeking perspective. How do you stay confident when everyone in the room disagrees with you? Adrian asked. Naomi looked through the updated information before answering. Because disagreement does not always mean someone is wrong. Sometimes it means someone is looking at the situation differently. Adrian thought about that answer carefully. He had spent years surrounded by people who treated disagreement as a challenge to authority. Naomi treated it as an opportunity to discover something new. As the days passed, Adrian began noticing changes within his own team. Meetings became more honest. People started asking deeper questions. Executives who once focused only on positive outcomes began considering possible problems before making commitments. The difference was not because Naomi demanded attention. It was because her example changed the standard around her. She showed people that professionalism was not about having the loudest voice. It was about having the courage to say what needed to be said. Adrian realized that Naomi's greatest value was not just her ability to analyze numbers. It was her ability to separate truth from emotion. She had entered his world as the person who gave his project a 0. But slowly, he began seeing her as the person who helped him protect everything he had built. And that realization forced Adrian to face a question he had avoided for years. If one person had the courage to challenge him honestly, how many others had stayed silent before? The days after Naomi Carter's evaluation changed the atmosphere inside Whitmore Tower in ways that surprised even Adrian Whitmore himself. The project was still worth $2 billion, but the conversation around it was no longer focused only on success. People were finally discussing responsibility, preparation, and the importance of seeing every possible outcome before making a decision. For Adrian, that shift represented something much bigger than a change in strategy. It represented a change in the way he viewed leadership. The Mafia Boss had spent years building an empire by trusting his instincts. He believed confidence was necessary because hesitation could create missed opportunities. But Naomi had shown him that confidence without reflection could become a blind spot. She did not challenge his ambition. She challenged the idea that ambition alone was enough. As the project team began reviewing the concerns Naomi had raised, several details became impossible to ignore. The financial projections needed more careful analysis. The timeline required adjustments. Some assumptions that once appeared certain were now being questioned. Adrian watched as the team slowly recognized what Naomi had seen from the beginning. The 0 she gave was not a rejection of the entire vision. It was a message that the foundation needed to become stronger before the dream could become reality. Meanwhile, Naomi continued working with the same calm focus she had shown from the start. She did not remind anyone that she had been right. She did not seek attention for identifying the problems. She simply continued helping the team find better solutions. That was what made Adrian respect her even more. Many people wanted recognition after proving their point. Naomi wanted progress. One morning, Adrian invited Naomi to a private meeting to discuss the future direction of the investment. This time, the conversation felt different. There was no tension between them. There was no need for Adrian to defend his position or for Naomi to defend her evaluation. They were simply two professionals examining a challenge together. What would you do if this decision belonged to you? Adrian asked. Naomi looked over the updated reports before answering. I would keep the vision, but I would rebuild the structure around it. A strong future requires more than confidence. It requires preparation. Adrian remained quiet for a moment. Her answer reminded him of something he had forgotten. Great leaders were not the people who never made mistakes. They were the people who created an environment where mistakes could be discovered before they became disasters. Later that week, Adrian noticed another change. The people around him were becoming more comfortable sharing different opinions. They were no longer afraid that questioning an idea meant disrespecting the person who created it. Naomi had changed the standard without demanding authority. She had shown everyone that honesty could exist alongside respect. Some executives who once questioned her now approached her for advice. They realized that her strength was not simply her ability to identify problems. Her strength was her ability to explain them in a way that created solutions. Adrian saw that quality clearly. In his world, many people knew how to speak with confidence. Few knew how to speak with purpose. As he reviewed the new project plan, Adrian looked back at the first evaluation that started everything. The number that once felt like a challenge now felt like a valuable warning. He understood that Naomi had not taken something away from him. She had protected something important. And for the first time in many years, Adrian realized that the person who questioned his biggest decision might have been the person who believed in its success the most. The changes inside Whitmore Tower continued to grow, but the biggest transformation was not happening inside the project documents. It was happening in the way Adrian Whitmore viewed the people around him. The Mafia Boss who once believed leadership meant having the strongest opinion in the room was beginning to understand that leadership required something far more difficult. It required the humility to consider another perspective. Naomi Carter had never asked Adrian to change. She had never demanded recognition or tried to prove that she was smarter than everyone else. She simply brought facts into every conversation and allowed the truth to speak for itself. That was exactly why Adrian trusted her. As the revised plan for the $2 billion investment developed, Adrian invited Naomi to take a larger role in reviewing future decisions. The announcement surprised many people inside the company. Some believed Adrian was giving too much influence to someone who had originally challenged him. Others wondered why he would choose an evaluator who once rejected his vision instead of someone who supported it from the beginning. But Adrian understood something they did not. Support was easy to find when everything looked successful. Honest advice was much harder to find when a decision carried enormous pressure. During a leadership meeting, Adrian explained his decision to the team. A person who always agrees with me can make me comfortable. A person who challenges me can help me improve. The room became quiet because everyone understood the meaning behind his words. Adrian was not protecting his pride anymore. He was protecting the future of the company. Naomi continued approaching every task with the same discipline. She reviewed information carefully, asked difficult questions, and focused on creating better outcomes. Her position inside the company changed, but her attitude did not. She still treated every person with respect, whether they were executives or employees working behind the scenes. Adrian noticed that quality because it was rare. Many people changed when they gained influence. Naomi remained the same. One afternoon, Adrian asked Naomi why she never seemed interested in proving herself after everything that happened. He expected an answer about ambition or success. Instead, she gave him something different. I spent a long time proving my ability to people who had already decided what they thought about me. Eventually, I realized my work did not need permission to have value. Adrian remembered those words. He understood what it meant to be judged by reputation. But he also realized that Naomi had faced a different kind of challenge. People had underestimated her before they understood her, yet she never allowed their opinions to determine her confidence. That strength impressed him more than any financial achievement. As the weeks passed, the relationship between Adrian and Naomi became an example throughout the company. Employees saw that disagreement did not have to create conflict. They saw that different perspectives could create stronger decisions. The culture inside Whitmore Tower began changing because one person had been brave enough to speak honestly. Adrian looked back at the moment Naomi placed the evaluation on the table. At first, he saw the number 0 as a challenge to his authority. Now he saw it as the beginning of a better way of thinking. Naomi had not entered his world to take away his success. She had entered it to make sure that success was built on something stronger. And Adrian finally understood that the most valuable people were not always the ones who protected his confidence. They were the ones who protected his judgment. The partnership between Adrian Whitmore and Naomi Carter continued to change the way decisions were made inside Whitmore Tower. What started as a disagreement over a $2 billion investment had become something far more meaningful. It had become a lesson about trust, leadership, and the value of having someone willing to speak honestly. Adrian had spent years building an empire where confidence was considered one of his greatest strengths. He was known as a man who could make difficult choices without hesitation. But after working with Naomi, he began to understand that confidence alone was not enough. The strongest leaders were not the ones who never questioned themselves. They were the ones who created space for better answers to appear. As the company prepared for future investments, Adrian began changing the way his leadership team approached decisions. Meetings that once focused only on positive results began including deeper discussions about possible challenges. Employees who once remained silent started sharing ideas. The atmosphere inside the company became more open because people no longer believed that every disagreement was a sign of disrespect. Naomi had changed the culture without demanding control over it. One morning, Adrian asked Naomi to join him during a review of a new business opportunity. The project was smaller than the original investment, but Adrian treated it with the same level of attention. He wanted to understand every possible outcome before making a decision. Naomi noticed the difference immediately. "You are asking different questions now," she said. Adrian looked through the documents in front of him. "Because I learned that the first answer is not always the best answer." Naomi smiled slightly. It was a simple statement, but it showed how much he had changed. The man who once believed his experience was enough now understood the importance of continuous learning. Later that week, some executives questioned whether Adrian had become too cautious. They believed his willingness to consider different opinions showed uncertainty. But Adrian saw it differently. He knew that careful thinking was not a weakness. It was a responsibility. He remembered the day Naomi gave his project a 0. At the time, many people saw her evaluation as a problem. Now he saw it as proof that someone was willing to protect the company when everyone else was focused only on success. Meanwhile, Naomi continued to inspire people around her. She became known not because she had challenged Adrian, but because she consistently brought value to every decision. She never used her position to make others feel less important. She understood that respect was not about making someone else smaller. It was about recognizing the strengths everyone brought to the table. One evening, Adrian and Naomi discussed the future of the company while reviewing the progress of several projects. Adrian looked at the updated reports and said, "I used to think the strongest person in the room was the one with the most answers." Naomi looked at him. "And now?" Adrian paused before responding. "Now I think it is the person who knows when to listen." Those words represented the biggest change in his journey. He had not lost his authority. He had strengthened it. He had not become less powerful. He had learned how to use power with greater responsibility. Naomi entered his world as the person who challenged his biggest decision. But over time, she became the person who helped him make better ones. And Adrian finally understood that the greatest value of honesty was not proving someone wrong. It was helping everyone move forward with a clearer vision. The story of Adrian Whitmore and Naomi Carter had become something few people inside Whitmore Tower expected. What began as a disagreement over a $2 billion investment had transformed into a new way of thinking about leadership. The man who once believed power came from having the final word had discovered that true influence came from knowing when another voice deserved to be heard. Adrian continued leading the company with the same determination that had built his reputation, but the way he made decisions was different now. He no longer searched for people who simply supported his ideas. He searched for people who challenged those ideas with honesty and purpose. Naomi noticed the change, but she never allowed herself to become distracted by it. She remained focused on her work, reviewing information, studying possibilities, and helping the company make thoughtful decisions. She understood that respect was not created by being close to power. It was created by bringing value wherever she was needed. As new opportunities appeared, Adrian began involving Naomi in conversations that once would have been limited to senior executives. Some people were surprised by how much he trusted her perspective. They remembered the moment when she gave his project a 0 and wondered how that could have become the beginning of such a strong partnership. But Adrian understood something they did not. The person who questioned his decision was not trying to weaken him. She was helping him protect everything he had built. One afternoon, Adrian gathered his leadership team to discuss a major expansion plan. In the past, he would have presented the strategy and waited for agreement. This time, he asked everyone in the room to share concerns before discussing solutions. The change was small, but the meaning behind it was significant. He had learned that the best decisions were not created by avoiding difficult conversations. They were created by having them. When it was Naomi's turn to speak, she carefully explained both the strengths and weaknesses of the plan. She did not focus only on what could go wrong. She also showed the team how preparation could create better results. Adrian watched as everyone listened carefully. He remembered how different the room had felt the first time Naomi challenged him. Back then, people saw her as someone creating a problem. Now, they saw her as someone helping prevent one. After the meeting, Adrian thanked Naomi for her perspective. She responded with the same calm confidence she had shown from the beginning. The goal was never to prove anyone wrong, she said. The goal was always to make the best decision possible. Adrian smiled because he finally understood that mindset. For many years, he believed winning meant having the strongest argument. Naomi showed him that sometimes winning meant finding the strongest solution, even if it came from someone else. As time passed, their partnership became an example throughout the company. Employees saw that honesty and respect could exist together. They saw that a person did not need the highest title to make the greatest impact. Naomi's influence grew, not because she demanded attention, but because her actions consistently earned trust. Adrian's leadership grew stronger, not because he controlled every detail, but because he learned how to recognize the value of different perspectives. The woman who once stood across from him with a difficult truth became the person who helped shape the future of his empire. And Adrian Whitmore finally understood that the greatest leaders are not remembered because everyone agreed with them. They are remembered because they had the courage to listen when someone offered a better way forward. The transformation inside Whitmore Tower was no longer something people could ignore. The changes that began with one difficult evaluation had reached every part of the company. Adrian Whitmore had not simply changed a single decision. He had changed the way he viewed leadership itself. The Mafia Boss who once believed control was the foundation of success now understood that trust was even more valuable. He had spent years building an empire by making confident choices, but Naomi Carter had shown him that confidence became stronger when it was combined with humility. As the company continued to expand, Adrian made one decision that surprised many people. He asked Naomi to help train future leaders within the organization. Some questioned why he would give such responsibility to someone who had once challenged one of his biggest decisions. But Adrian knew exactly why. Naomi understood something that many successful people forgot. A strong leader did not need to have every answer. A strong leader needed to create an environment where the best answers could be discovered. Naomi accepted the opportunity, but she approached it the same way she approached everything else. She did not see herself as someone above others. She saw herself as someone responsible for helping people improve. She encouraged employees to ask better questions, examine details carefully, and understand that honesty was not an obstacle to progress. It was the foundation of it. One afternoon, Adrian watched Naomi speak with a group of young professionals inside the company. He noticed how they listened to her, not because of her title, but because they respected her experience and the way she treated them. She reminded them that being underestimated could become a source of strength if they refused to let other people define their potential. Adrian recognized something important in that moment. Naomi had not only changed his approach to business, she had influenced everyone around her by showing what integrity looked like in action. Later that evening, Adrian and Naomi discussed the future of the company. The conversation was different from the first time they had sat across from each other. There was no tension, no disagreement, and no need for either person to prove anything. There was simply mutual respect. "Do you remember when everyone thought that evaluation was the problem?" Adrian asked. Naomi smiled. "People often think the truth is the problem when they are not ready to hear it." Adrian looked out at the city below and considered how much had changed. The number that once felt like a threat to his reputation had become the moment that improved his entire approach to leadership. He realized that the most important lessons did not always come from people who agreed with him. They came from people who cared enough to challenge him with honesty. As time passed, the story of the $2 billion decision became more than a business example. It became a reminder throughout the company that respect was earned through actions, not demanded through position. Naomi Carter had entered Adrian's world as the person who questioned his plan. She remained because she helped build something stronger than a successful project. She helped build a stronger leader. And Adrian Whitmore finally understood that the greatest form of power was not having everyone follow your voice. It was having the wisdom to recognize the voice that could help you see what you had missed. Years after the moment that changed everything inside Whitmore Tower, Adrian Whitmore still remembered the day Naomi Carter placed that evaluation on the table. At the time, many people believed the number represented a failure. They believed it was a rejection of his vision, his experience, and his ability to make decisions. But Adrian understood the truth now. The number was never meant to destroy an opportunity. It was meant to protect one. The Mafia Boss who once believed strength came from having control over every outcome had learned that true leadership came from having the courage to accept another perspective. The $2 billion project eventually moved forward with a stronger foundation because the weaknesses Naomi identified were addressed. The success was not created by ignoring problems. It was created by having the honesty to face them. That lesson stayed with Adrian long after the project was completed. He changed the way he approached every major decision. Before making choices, he asked questions. Before accepting agreement, he searched for different opinions. Before trusting confidence, he looked for preparation. These changes did not make him less powerful. They made him a wiser leader. Naomi Carter continued building her own path as well. She never allowed the recognition she received to change who she was. She remained the same person who walked into a room filled with powerful executives and focused only on the truth in front of her. She did not need to remind people of her value because her actions showed it every day. Over time, the company became known for a different kind of leadership. People were encouraged to speak honestly, challenge ideas respectfully, and focus on long-term results instead of temporary approval. The lesson Naomi brought into the organization became part of its foundation. One evening, Adrian and Naomi returned to the conference room where their story had started. The same room where people once questioned her judgment now represented something completely different. Adrian looked around and smiled. "Do you realize this room changed everything?" he asked. Naomi looked at the table where she had placed the evaluation years before. "The room did not change anything," she replied. "The decision to listen did." Adrian thought about those words. He realized she was right. The most important moment was never the evaluation itself. It was the choice he made afterward. He could have protected his pride, ignored the warning, and continued believing that success meant never being challenged. Instead, he chose to learn. He chose growth over comfort. He chose truth over approval. That decision became the foundation of a better future. The story of Adrian Whitmore and Naomi Carter was remembered not because a powerful man was challenged by an unexpected voice. It was remembered because he had the wisdom to recognize the value of that voice. Naomi proved that a person does not need the highest position in the room to make the greatest impact. Adrian proved that true strength is not measured by how many people follow you. It is measured by whether you are willing to listen when someone helps you become better. And in the end, the decision that started with a surprising number became a reminder that the greatest investments are not always financial. Sometimes the most valuable investment is the willingness to see the truth, respect the person who delivers it, and change when change is needed.